They were smiling while pushing me out of the very home I'd been holding together. By the next morning, they wanted me gone. That Sunday night, what should have been a normal family dinner at my parents' house unraveled into something I never saw coming. I'm Dorothy Shaw, 34, an environmental engineer in Omaha. My fork slipped from my fingers and struck the plate with a sharp clang. For years, I had covered almost every expense: power bills, repairs, even the brand new refrigerator. And now, suddenly, I was disposable. My brother's wife tilted her head, a victorious curve on her lips, her eyes sparkling like she'd just won something. I tried to speak up, my voice unsteady as I listed every payment I'd made, every fix I'd handled. Dad brushed me off with a careless wave. It's settled. Mom stayed silent, staring down at her plate, refusing to meet my eyes. A rush of heat flooded my chest. I shoved my chair back, grabbed my keys, and muttered, "Fine, I'm leaving." That night, I packed up everything that belonged to me: the TV, the couch, the coffee maker, and walked out of the house I had worked tirelessly to support. A week later, my phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice sounded tight, strained. In the background, I could hear Justin shouting, panic bleeding through the line. "She's lying. Mom, tell me she's lying." Confusion crackled through the speaker just as I'd started piecing my life back together. And what happened next would completely upend theirs. Before we go on, tell me what time it is, where you're watching from, and what city you're in. I'd love to know how far the story has reached and who's listening. Years before all of this, I'd moved back into my parents' house in Omaha to study things. After Grandma passed, the debt piled up: mortgage payments, utility bills, even a roof leak Dad kept ignoring. As an environmental engineer, I stepped in and carried nearly all of it. My paychecks went toward new windows, a replacement water heater, keeping the electricity running. 60-hour weeks became normal, juggling field inspections with late-night paperwork. And still, it never seemed to be enough. Dad would glance at the receipts I handed him, nod vaguely, but his focus always drifted back to my brother, Justin. Somehow, no matter how badly he failed, he always managed to land on his feet. He'd burn through one idea after another: food trucks, crypto investments, a sketchy online store that didn't survive a year. Every collapse ended the same way: him pitching another grand vision to Dad. And every time, Dad bought it, calling him a visionary. Meanwhile, my efforts barely registered. Once, I overheard Mom whisper to Dad, "She's just helping George." Then she added, "Justin's the one with real ambition." It stung. I felt less like their daughter and more like a tenant funding the household. Then Justin brought home his wife. He introduced her at dinner, grinning ear to ear, describing her as a successful real estate agent. She had a dazzling smile and heels sharp enough to slice through tile. Mom and Dad were immediately charmed, praising her confidence, her polish, her supposed success. She arrived in a sleek black SUV, flashing a luxury watch that practically shouted money. Something about it didn't add up. Real estate in Omaha wasn't exactly a gold rush, especially for someone under 30. Her laughter rang a little too loud. Her timing felt rehearsed as she tossed her hair and laughed at Dad's jokes, while Justin sat there glowing like he'd struck gold. When I asked about her listings or clients, she dodged the questions, steering the conversation towards some mysterious big deal she was about to close. Then the details started stacking up. Designer shopping bags. A brand new phone she claimed was a work expense. Justin never questioned it. He just bragged about her hustle. Dad would beam, clapping him on the back. "You found yourself a real catch." I kept quiet, even though the numbers never made sense. My salary was stretched thin, keeping that house alive. Yet she flaunted money like it flowed endlessly. When I asked Mom if she noticed anything strange, she just sighed. "She's doing well, Dorothy. Don't be paranoid." But it wasn't just the money. She could guide any conversation exactly where she wanted, tossing around terms like equity and leverage, watching Dad's eyes light up with admiration. Justin hung on every word. If I mentioned something practical like overdue property taxes, Dad would cut me off. "Let's hear about her next project." Unless a bill needed paying, I might as well have disappeared. Once at dinner, I caught her glancing at me. Just a quick smirk, like she knew she'd already won. Outside of that, nothing improved. Justin borrowed my car whenever he felt like it, claiming it was for work. Dad insisted I should contribute more, even though I was already carrying most of the financial weight. Mom retreated into dishes and knitting, never looking at me directly. So I started keeping track. Every payment, every repair, quietly calculating the hundreds of thousands I'd invested in that house over the years. I wasn't just helping. I was the one holding it together. But to them, I was just the safety net, dependable, invisible, while Justin and his wife took center stage. Most nights, I lay awake in my childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling, wondering why none of it mattered, why my sacrifices barely counted. I thought about the promotions I'd declined to stay nearby, the weekends spent fixing leaks instead of living my own life. And something about her polished charm, her effortless answers, kept nagging at me. I couldn't shake the feeling she was setting something bigger in motion, something that would cost us more than just my place in that house. That Sunday evening, I walked into the dining room expecting a peaceful meal. Mom had set out her old china. Pot roast filled the air. I took my usual seat, forcing a smile as Dad carved the meat. Mom fussed with napkins, her hands trembling slightly. Then the front door burst open. Justin stormed in, dragging 2 suitcases behind him. His wife followed, designer totes slung over her shoulder. "We're moving in," he announced, dropping the luggage with a heavy thud. She gave a tight smile, heels clicking as she stepped beside him. My stomach twisted. This wasn't temporary. Dad didn't even look surprised. "Dorothy," he said calmly, eyes still on his plate. "You can move into the guest room." A brief pause. "Or you can move out." His tone was flat. Practiced. My fork froze midair. "What?" My throat tightened around the word. Justin leaned back, a smug grin spreading across his face. "Come on, Dorothy. You don't need all that space. We're starting fresh." His wife's gaze drifted around the room as if she were already planning renovations. Years of frustration surged to the surface. "Wait a second," I snapped. "I've been paying for this house, the utilities, the repairs, the mortgage. I bought the fridge, the water heater, even the paint on these walls. And now you expect me to sleep on a fold-out couch." I looked at Dad, desperate for some sign he understood. He sighed. "It's time for you to step back. Justin and his wife need room. They have plans." Plans? I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. Justin's plans never lasted more than a season, and I was always the one patching up the damage. He leaned forward, smirk deepening. "You're not really essential here, Dorothy," he said, mockery dripping from every word. "You're just here." His wife stifled a laugh behind manicured fingers. My hands clenched under the table, nails biting into my skin. "Not essential?" I shot back, my voice shaking with anger. "I've poured hundreds of thousands into this place. I gave up promotions. I spent my weekends fixing pipes and keeping everything running. What exactly have you done, Justin?" My voice cracked, but I didn't stop. I was done being invisible. Dad's hand slammed onto the table, silverware rattling. "Enough," he barked. "This isn't about you. They're family, and they're staying. End of discussion." Mom twisted her napkin, eyes down, lips sealed. I waited for her to speak. To look at me. She didn't. Justin's wife leaned into him, whispering something that made him chuckle. The air felt suffocating. I shoved my chair back. "I'm done," I said, standing. "If I'm not wanted, I'll leave." My heart pounded as I went upstairs. I stuffed clothes, my laptop, a few books into a duffel bag, whatever I could grab quickly. Then I headed back down, unplugged the flat screen I had paid for, stacked the couch cushions I'd bought by the door. Justin trailed behind me, amused. "You're seriously taking the couch?" he laughed. I didn't respond. I just kept loading everything into my car. Dad stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You're being dramatic," he said. He said it without emotion. I didn't turn around. I tossed the final box into the trunk, slammed it shut, and drove away, watching the house shrink in my rearview mirror. I wasn't just leaving a room behind. I was done being the one who carried them all. Within days, I found a small one-bedroom apartment in downtown Omaha. The steady hum of the city outside my window felt oddly comforting compared to the heavy silence I'd lived with before. My coworker Gloria had found the listing, a simple place that perfectly fit my rescued TV and couch. She came over that first night, laughing as we unpacked. "You got to stop living in your head, Dorothy," she said, handing me a flyer for a nearby yoga class. "It's not just stretching. It resets you." I wasn't sure about it, but her enthusiasm was infectious. The next evening I went. I wobbled through half the poses, but for the first time in weeks, something inside me loosened. Gloria's steady support became a small anchor as I slowly rebuilt my routine. But the nagging feeling about Justin's wife wouldn't disappear. The designer bags, the polished SUV, the effortless spending, none of it aligned. So, I decided to look deeper. I called Michael, a real estate contact I'd met years ago at a conference. He picked up quickly. "Dorothy? It's been a while. What's going on?" I got straight to it. I asked what he knew about Miriam, Justin's wife, the self-proclaimed real estate star with endless deals and money that didn't add up. There was a pause. "Miriam Cole," he said finally. "Yeah, her name surfaced a few times. There are rumors her agency's under review. Questionable flips. Inflated appraisals. Missing client funds. Nothing official yet, but she's not exactly spotless." My stomach dropped. I thanked him and ended the call, my thoughts racing. If that was true, my family was caught in something far worse than I'd imagined. I called Dad immediately. "Dad, you need to hear this," I said, explaining what Michael told me. He grunted. "Dorothy, stop interfering. They're fine. Leave it alone." I mentioned the investigation again, but he cut me off. "That's enough. Focus on your own life." The line went dead. Heat burned behind my eyes. His loyalty to Justin and Miriam over me was infuriating, but predictable. It had always been that way. I tried Mom next. "Please, just listen," I urged, outlining the red flags, the money, the rumors, the scrutiny around the firm. She sighed softly. "Dorothy, let it go. They're happy. Don't ruin that." I swallowed the frustration rising in my throat. They were choosing blindness, and arguing wouldn't change it. Mom never opposed Dad or Justin. When I hung up, the loneliness hit hard. But I wasn't walking away from this. I reached out to other contacts. A former client, a real estate attorney, replied within hours, confirming the agency had complaints tied to fraudulent mortgages. A surveyor I'd worked with mentioned hearing Miriam's name connected to questionable transactions at a title company. Each new piece tightened the knot in my chest. This wasn't a hunch anymore. It was certainty. She was hiding something serious. Quietly, I gathered everything. Public records revealed properties in Miriam's name, each sold at suspiciously inflated prices, followed by disputes. Not definitive proof, but enough to keep digging. I messaged Michael again, asking him to alert me if anything new surfaced. He responded quickly. "Will do. I'll keep my ears open." Meanwhile, I forced myself into a new rhythm. Work, yoga, occasional dinners with Gloria. The city buzzed with possibility. But underneath it all, the sting of my family's rejection lingered. One question kept circling in my mind. How far did Miriam's schemes reach? And was Justin just naive or involved? 2 weeks later, I ran into Hazel at a quiet downtown cafe. She was an old family friend, sitting near the window with her gray hair neatly tied back. "Dorothy. It's been ages," she smiled. We exchanged small talk, but when I mentioned Miriam, her expression changed. "Miriam Cole," she said slowly. "I remember her. She worked at a firm in Lincoln. Bad reputation. They were caught forging signatures and inflating property values to skim profits. The company collapsed, but Miriam slipped out before it all blew up." My pulse quickened. This wasn't gossip. It fit the pattern perfectly. I left the cafe and drove straight to my parents' house, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. Justin was outside unloading groceries, looking pleased with himself. "We need to talk," I said, pulling up Michael's email detailing the investigation. She's not who you think she is, I told him, holding out my phone. Her agency's been scamming people, fake appraisals, stolen money. Hazel confirmed she was involved in a real estate fraud case in Lincoln. His face hardened. He grabbed the phone, skimmed it, then shoved it back at me. You're unbelievable, he snapped. You're jealous. Miriam's successful, and you can't handle it. Stop making things up. I stared at him. This isn't about me. It's about the risk she's bringing into this family. He let out a harsh laugh. Go play detective somewhere else. Inside, Mom stood at the stove, stirring soup. I tried again. Mom, Hazel knew her from before. That firm scammed people. You need to look at what Miriam's doing, especially with the house. Mom froze briefly, gripping the spoon tighter, but she didn't turn around. Dorothy, please don't cause problems, she murmured. Justin's happy. That's what matters. It felt like another door shutting in my face. Back in my apartment, I called Michael again. Hazel confirmed it, I said. Miriam worked at that corrupt company in Lincoln. Have you found anything else? There was a pause. I checked additional records, he said carefully. Dorothy, her name appears on a mortgage document tied to your parents' house. Signed last month. It's a second lien connected to a shell company. My breath caught. If this is what it looks like, he continued, your parents could lose the house. The words hit hard. The house I'd poured years of savings into is now collateral in her scheme. My hands shook as I asked him to send everything. Then I opened public records myself. The loan was real, a 6-figure mortgage against the property, Miriam's signature next to Dad's. Then another transfer surfaced. Money moved from my parents' savings into an account tied to her agency. This wasn't just fraud. It was personal. She had exploited their trust, and they'd allowed it. Every dismissed warning replayed in my mind. They'd chosen Justin and Miriam over me, and now they were caught in her web. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, the weight pressing down. All those years of sacrifice, paying bills, keeping everything afloat, only to be pushed aside. But I wasn't finished. Miriam might have fooled them, but she hadn't fooled me. She wasn't walking away with what I'd helped build. I saved every document, every email, every record. This wasn't only about the house anymore. It was about exposing her, dragging every lie into the light. No matter how far she tried to run, I would make sure there was nowhere left to hide. A few nights later, while working late, my phone buzzed. Mom's voice trembled on the other end. Dorothy, there are people here. They're asking for Miriam. My pulse surged. I grabbed my keys and drove straight there. 2 investigators stood in the driveway, badges catching the porch light. Dad hovered near the door, pale. Justin paced behind him, phone pressed to his ear. This involves multiple real estate transactions, one investigator said, holding a thick folder. We need to speak with Miriam Cole. She's connected to fraud, falsified documents, forged signatures, misuse of funds. I stayed back, watching as Justin's face drained of color. She's lying. Mom, tell me she's lying, he shouted, his voice breaking. The investigators continued, explaining that several fraudulent loans had been taken out using Justin's name, including one tied directly to the house. Mom stood frozen in the hallway, clutching her sweater. Dad stepped forward, voice unsteady. She's not here right now. They handed him a card, warning they'd return soon. As their car pulled away, headlights swept across the street. A sleek vehicle rolled to a stop. Miriam sat behind the wheel, her face illuminated by the dashboard glow. She hadn't seen me yet. I crossed the street, my phone recording silently in my pocket. Miriam, I called, keeping my voice steady despite the anger burning inside me. She stiffened, eyes darting toward the house. What is this about, Dorothy? She asked, her tone sharp.
I didn't hesitate.
I know about the second mortgage. The transfers. Everything. You've been draining my family. Just admit it. Her face hardened. She didn't even try to pretend.
Fine, she snapped.
I took the money. The house was collateral for a deal your dad agreed to. Justin had no idea. My thumb pressed harder against the phone in my pocket, making sure every word was captured. You used them, I said quietly. She gave a small, cold smile. They trusted me. That's on them. Before I could respond, she turned, slid into her car, and sped off, tires screeching as she disappeared down the street. I stood there, heart pounding, the weight of her confessions settling in. She was gone, leaving the fallout behind for everyone else. When I walked back inside, Justin was falling apart. How could she do this? He kept saying, dragging his hands through his hair. Then he looked at me, panic cutting through the shock. Dorothy, you knew. Why didn't you stop her? I stared at him in disbelief. I tried. You called me jealous. All of you shut me out. Mom turned her face away, her silence thick and heavy. Dad sank into a chair, covering his face with his hands. The investigators' papers lay scattered across the table, loans, transfers, the very warnings I'd given them and they had ignored. Later that night, my phone buzzed again. Dad's voice trembled. Dorothy, we're in serious trouble. The bank's calling in the loan. We could lose the house. Can you come back? We need you. I closed my eyes, memories flashing through me. The years I held everything together, the bills I paid, the night they told me to leave. No, Dad, I said calmly. I already gave you everything. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. He tried to speak, his words breaking apart, but I ended the call. For the first time in years, the weight lifted. I was free. The next morning, I replayed the recording. Miriam's voice, cold, unapologetic, admitting everything. I saved it carefully. It was exactly what the investigators needed. Justin and my parents were left to face the consequences. The debt, the collapsing finances, the house on the brink. Their trust in Miriam had destroyed them. I had warned them. I had fought for them. And still, they chose her over me. I wasn't going back to repair the damage they helped create. But that morning I drove over anyway, just to see what remained. The yard was still. The porch light flickered faintly from the night before. Inside, the dining table was buried under bank notices, loan statements, foreclosure warnings. Dad handed me a thick folder from the bank. The numbers were devastating. A second mortgage for $250,000 signed by him and Miriam, with no payments made. Nearly $200,000 in retirement savings transferred into an account connected to her company. I traced each transaction, my mind mapping the destruction like a blueprint. The house I had sustained for years was now a financial trap, weeks away from being seized. Justin sat hunched on the couch, face blotched red, eyes swollen. Dorothy, you have to help us, he said, voice breaking. The bank's taking everything. We have nothing left. I looked at him, the same brother who laughed at me, who called me jealous. Help you, I said softly, my tone cold. You told me I wasn't essential. You and Dad gave me an ultimatum. Guest room or leave. I left. He flinched but pressed on. We're family. You can't just walk away. Family doesn't mean I clean up every disaster you create, I replied. You made your decision. I'm done rescuing you. Dad stood by the window, shoulders slumped. I made a mistake, Dorothy. I trusted her. I thought they knew what they were doing. I was wrong. His words hurt, but they weren't enough. You didn't just trust her, I said evenly. You chose her over me. You chose Justin's fantasies over everything I did to keep this house standing. He turned toward me, eyes pleading, but I stayed where I was. I had already given too much. Mom walked in, tears streaking her face. Dorothy, please. We're going to lose everything. The house, the savings, it's all gone.
She reached for me.
I stepped back. The memory of her silence that night, her refusal to even look at me, was still fresh. You didn't listen, I said quietly. I warned you. You told me to let it go. And now you want me to save you. She covered her face and cried. A flicker of guilt twisted in my chest, but not enough to make me stay. I wasn't their safety net anymore. As I walked through the house, every corner reminded me of what I had poured into it. The windows I paid to replace, the refrigerator I bought, the walls I painted. Now all of it was tied to Miriam's fraud. Foreclosure was weeks away, unless the loan was paid. Justin had no job worth mentioning, no plan. Dad's pension barely covered basic bills. Mom's part-time hours stretched thin. They were staring at financial ruin. And for the first time, I accepted that I wasn't going to rescue them. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't owe them that anymore. I walked out, their voices trailing behind me. Back at my apartment, I stared at the recording again. Miriam's confession. I had already sent it to investigators, hoping it would strengthen their case. But justice wouldn't restore what had already been lost. The truth was, my family had been fractured long before the fraud. Miriam had simply exposed the cracks. I had built something new in Omaha, a life that was mine. My space. My peace. My rules. I wasn't going back. 6 months later, sunlight streamed across my apartment as Gloria and I sat at my kitchen table with a bottle of wine between us. My desk nearby was covered in blueprints from a bridge project I had just led, the one that earned me a promotion to lead engineer. The raise allowed me to finally buy the coffee table and bookshelf I'd always wanted. Gloria lifted her glass with a grin.
To you, Dorothy.
You're absolutely thriving. I laughed, light, unburdened. For the first time in years, I felt free. Yoga twice a week. Dinners with Gloria. A career shaped by my own decisions. I wasn't happy because life was flawless. I was happy because I chose myself. Eventually, news reached me through a mutual friend. The house was gone. The bank foreclosed after too many missed payments. My parents moved into a small rental in the Omaha suburbs. Justin was working part-time at a hardware store, scraping by. His old confidence was gone, replaced by late-night messages asking friends for help. Dad picked up delivery jobs. Mom cleaned houses. Miriam's betrayal had drained their savings and their pride. They were surviving.
Barely.
I hadn't spoken to them since that last visit. Justin texted a few times, asking for money or a place to stay. I never answered. Dad's voicemails grew softer, filled with regret. I couldn't return them. Mom sent one letter, a single page of apologies. It still sits unopened on my counter. For years, I carried their weight, only to be cast aside when I needed them most. Walking away wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I learned that protecting your peace means choosing self-respect over obligation. Real love doesn't demand silence or sacrifice. Family isn't just shared blood. It's the people who truly see you, who value what you give, who stand beside you without conditions. Gloria became that for me, someone who showed up simply because she cared. My parents and Justin chose Miriam's lies over my truth. I paid for their blindness. But in choosing myself, I discovered something stronger. My own worth. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's protection. Of your heart, your time, your peace. Thank you for staying with me through this journey of betrayal and rebuilding. Drawing lines with the people you love is painful, but sometimes it's the only way to save yourself. Have you ever had to create distance or boundaries with your own family? What did it teach you? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. Let's talk about what it really means to stand up for ourselves, even when it breaks our hearts.